When my son told me he was bringing his wife home, I was overjoyed. I cooked her favorite meal, wore my best wrapper, and waited eagerly. She came in smiling, calling me Mama, hugging me so tightly that tears of joy welled in my eyes. For days, she helped me in the kitchen, laughed with me, and told me stories of her mother. I thought, truly, God has answered my prayer for a daughter. But at night, when I passed by their door, I sometimes heard her whisper, "She's too involved in everything. But don't worry, I'll handle her." I brushed it aside, telling myself it was wedding stress. But the way she would watch me when I prayed, the tight smiles, the quiet corrections she made when I spoke to visitors, something wasn't right. She rearranged my kitchen, moved my pots, telling me it was modern. She would cook while I watched, refusing my help with a smile. "Mama, rest your old," she'd say, touching my shoulder lightly, but her eyes were cold. I began to notice that she was drawing my son closer to herself, while slowly pushing me aside, turning our small home into a place where I felt like a guest. But I kept telling myself, be patient. I did not know I was welcoming the storm that would destroy my peace. It started with small things. She would sigh loudly when I prayed out loud in the mornings. When visitors came, she would cut me off mid-sentence, saying, "No, Mama, that's not how it happened," making me look forgetful. I started feeling embarrassed, forgetting words as I spoke, my confidence crumbling under her sharp gaze. She began buying her own food, saying I was wasting money. She kept her ingredients separate, labeling them with her name, and would hide them when I was around. She would leave the kitchen when I entered, rolling her eyes. At night, I heard her laughing quietly while on the phone with her friends. She will get tired and leave. She doesn't know who she's dealing with. My heart would pound, and I would hold my wrapper tightly, praying to God to give me the strength to endure. She began telling my son little complaints. "Mama left the tap running," or "Mama doesn't wash her hands before cooking." My son started correcting me gently, but the way he looked at me changed. Pity and disappointment, replacing the love I once saw in his eyes. I was losing my son, and the walls of my home began to feel like a cage closing in on me. She began handling the household money, telling my son she wanted to relieve me of stress. My son agreed, and suddenly I had to ask her for soap, salt, or small change for pain relief tablets. She would sigh and say, "Mama, money is tight." But she would buy herself new clothes and find ingredients for her own meals. She rearranged the house, moved my husband's chair to the store, and took down the photo frames I had of him, saying they make the house look old. When I put them back, she threw them into a drawer. When I asked her why, she smiled, "Mama, it's for the best." My son didn't say anything, too busy with work and trusting her to handle the home. I stopped sitting in the living room, retreating to my small room, where I would hold my husband's photo and weep quietly. In my house, I had become a stranger, watching another woman take control while everyone cheered her on. One day, she screamed, "My money is missing." She cried loudly, gathering neighbors, pointing at me. "Mama took it." I'm sure. My son returned to find people murmuring in front of our gate, whispering that it was a shame an old woman would steal from her son's wife. My son's eyes were red when he looked at me. "Mama, please, if you needed money. You should have asked." My lips trembled. I didn't take it. But she was weeping, and everyone believed her. Neighbors shook their heads at me as they left, some saying, "It's not easy getting old." I stood there, humiliated, my dignity shattered, my hands shaking, as she smirked behind my son's back. That day, a piece of me broke forever. After the accusation, she stopped giving me food, saying she was not my maid. She began cooking only for herself and my son, leaving me to fend for myself. The kitchen was locked at night, and I would drink water and try to sleep with the sounds of my stomach rumbling painfully. When I fainted from hunger, she told the neighbors, "Mama is weak, we're trying our best." My son patted my back, "Mama, take care of yourself." But he never asked why I was getting thinner or why my eyes were always swollen from crying. The loneliness became heavy, pressing on my chest every day as I lay on my mat, clutching my wrapper, praying for morning to come quickly. But deep within, I felt a spark. I would not die this way. It was on a Thursday evening when I heard her laugh after dropping the phone. "She will soon leave, don't worry. I'm tired of seeing her face." The words sliced through me like a blade. I turned on my mat, tears wetting my wrapper as I clutched my husband's photo to my chest. My stomach growled, reminding me I hadn't eaten all day because she locked the kitchen again. I remembered when I was young, how I used to stand boldly in the market, how I would laugh with my husband while we worked to build this home. I remembered how I raised my son alone after his father died, ensuring he lacked nothing. How did I become this weak? That night, I prayed a prayer I hadn't prayed in a long time. God, give me strength to stand again. The next morning, she placed her phone on the table, camera facing me as she shouted, "Useless old woman, leave my kitchen." I realized she was recording me, trying to get a reaction to show my son. I swallowed my tears, looked into the camera, and said nothing, turning to walk away. That day, I decided to fight back. I borrowed a small recorder from the church youth leader, telling him it was to record hymns. I hid it under my wrapper, pressing record whenever she began her insults. Each "you will leave this house" was recorded, each slap of a door, each threat, each cruel laughter. It became my shield. I took pictures of my empty bowls, the locked kitchen door, and the bruises on my arms when she shoved me. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope. Every time she mocked me, I whispered in my heart, "I am not defeated yet." She thought she was smart, but she didn't know an old woman who built her life from nothing will never die quietly. With each passing day, I grew stronger. I no longer cried when she insulted me. Instead, I pressed record, ensuring her words were captured forever. "I will make you leave, even if it's the last thing I do." Click saved. Your son will choose me over you. Watch. Click saved. Each day, I cleaned my small corner and took pictures of the food I bought with my pension. I kept receipts in a nylon bag under my wrapper, knowing she would one day accuse me again of stealing. One afternoon, she told the neighbor loudly, "I'm trying to help Mama, but she's stubborn and forgetful. It's so hard living with her." The neighbor looked at me with pity. I only smiled, knowing the truth would soon come out. I prayed for the courage to reveal what I had gathered. I prayed for the strength not to shake when I pressed play. My body was weak, but my spirit was becoming like iron. At night, as I lay on my mat, I whispered to myself, "Soon I will be free." I began planning the family meeting, choosing a Sunday afternoon so everyone would be home. I wrote down names, my son, her parents, neighbors, our pastor, everyone who needed to hear the truth. Each time I heard her mocking me on the phone, I felt less fear and more determination. I was ready for war, but this time I would fight with truth. The Sunday I chose arrived, and the morning was unusually quiet. She looked at me, smirking. "I hope you don't embarrass yourself today." I wore my best wrapper, the one my husband bought me for our last anniversary before he died. I tied my scarf tightly, praying silently as I set out chairs. The neighbors arrived first, whispering and looking at me with curiosity. She came out, dressed in a bright dress, smiling, carrying my grandson, looking like the perfect wife. My son arrived with our pastor, his face tense. We all sat, and she immediately began, tears already forming. "Mama has been making life hard for me. She insults me, refuses to let me cook, and even threatens me sometimes." She sniffed, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief, while my son rubbed her back. I stood, my legs shaking, and reached into my wrapper. I pulled out my small recorder and pressed play. Her voice filled the air. "This old witch will leave this house, even if I have to starve her." Laughter, "She thinks she owns this place. Just wait, I'll poison her food." The room fell silent. Her mother gasped. Her father covered his face. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably. I laid out the pictures of my empty bowls, the locked kitchen, the bruises on my arms. I handed out the receipts showing I bought my own food. Tears streamed down my son's face. "Mama, why didn't you tell me?" I looked at him, my heart breaking, but I said quietly, "Would you have listened?" She tried to speak, but her mother stopped her, whispering, "You've shamed us." The pastor began to pray, but the house was heavy with silence. The truth was out. The power was back in my hands. She dropped to her knees, clutching my wrapper, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, please forgive me, I didn't mean it. I was stressed, I will change, please." My son wept beside her, holding his head in his hands. The neighbors who once whispered about me now looked at me with respect, some holding my hands, saying, "We are sorry, Mama." Her parents were ashamed, promising to talk to her, to discipline her, to help her change. But as she wept, begging, I felt empty. I remembered the hunger, the insults, the shame of being called a thief, the humiliation in front of neighbors. She kept crying, trying to hold my hand, but I gently pulled away, looking into her tear-filled eyes. "You have done what you came to do, but I will not be your prisoner anymore." The pastor prayed again, asking for peace, asking for healing in the family. My son begged me to stay, to let them make things right. But deep inside, I knew that even if she changed, I would never forget. The house was no longer my home. The next morning, I woke up early, prayed and packed my small bag. She tried to talk to me, but I walked past her. My son knelt before me, tears in his eyes. "Mama, please don't leave us. We will protect you now." I touched his head, tears falling down my face. My son, I love you, but I need peace. I walked out of the house I built with my husband, the home that had become a cage, and stepped into the morning sun. I moved to a small room I rented quietly with the little I saved, with a small garden where I planted peppers and tomatoes, a kettle to make tea, and a chair to watch the sunrise. At night, I lay on my mat without fear, without tears, without hunger. I was free. My son visits, bringing food, kneeling, weeping, saying, "Mama, please come back." But I smile, touching his cheek. I am finally at peace. And in my small room, I laugh again, sing again, and dance quietly in the mornings as I water my plants. A few weeks after I moved, I found peace in the small, quiet room I now called home. The mornings were calm. I woke up to the sound of birds, sipped my tea, and watered my small pepper and tomato garden. But one morning, I heard a knock. When I opened the door, I saw my son standing there, eyes swollen from crying. "Mama, please, just visit us for a few days. The house feels empty without you." I saw the longing in his eyes, the guilt on his face, and the love that had once been overshadowed. My heart softened, remembering how I raised him with songs and prayers, how he used to hold my wrapper when he was scared. I agreed to visit for 2 days, hoping that maybe things had truly changed. When I arrived, the house was quiet, clean, and her eyes were red, her face pale. "Mama, welcome," she said softly. She cooked for me, served me, and tried to smile. But the tension was thick. Neighbors came, peeking in, whispering, "Mama is back." But inside me, I felt restless, like I was sitting in a place that could once again become a prison. That night, I couldn't sleep. I realized that while I loved my son, I no longer belonged in this house. Some wounds heal, but the scars remind you where not to return. The next morning, she came to my room, kneeling, tears flowing. "Mama, please, I know I can never erase what I did, but I am begging you to forgive me truly." She held my feet, crying loudly, shaking. "I was foolish. I let pride and jealousy blind me. I was wrong." I looked at her, remembering the insults, the hunger, the humiliation. My heart felt heavy, and for a moment, I wanted to shout, to let out all the pain I had swallowed. But instead, I sighed deeply. "I forgave you long ago, but forgiveness does not mean forgetting." She wept louder, promising to take care of me if I came back, promising to prove herself. I told her softly, "You have to prove it to God and yourself, not to me." She looked up, confused. "Mama, you won't stay." I shook my head. "I have found peace, and I will not trade it again." That day, I realized that sometimes the people who hurt us are carrying battles we cannot see. But it is not our duty to stay where we are hurt. Forgiveness is freedom, but staying away is wisdom. I returned to my small home that afternoon. Feeling lighter, I sat on my chair, watching the sunset, a gentle breeze brushing against my skin. Children in the compound laughed, their joy reminding me of my son's laughter when he was little. I smiled, humming softly, my spirit calm. My son visited often now, bringing food and fruits, helping me water my garden. We would sit outside, talking and laughing, building a relationship again, not as mother and son under one roof, but as two people who had learned the value of peace. Neighbors who once avoided me now visited, seeking advice, bringing small gifts of soup and bread, saying, "Mama, you are strong." One day, I looked at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, God, for giving me the strength to walk away." In the evenings, I would cook my small meals, dance slowly as I stirred the pot, and sleep without fear or tears, because I learned that sometimes, the greatest victory is choosing yourself, even when it is hard.